Today is Monday, June 15th. I'm on my way to Seattle. I want to go to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, and I want to see this love fest with my own eyes.
Governor, I'd like to ask you about what's going on in Seattle. There's this thing called the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. What's your thought on that? The fact that the protesters have taken that over and not allowing people to come and go freely? And I have regarding the National Guard.
Well, that's news to me, so I'll have to reserve any comment about it. I have not heard anything about that from any credible source. Not that you're not credible, it's just like, before I espouse an opinion, I should know of which I speak.
Let's bring in the mayor of Seattle now.
We've got 4 blocks in Seattle that you just saw pictures of that is more like a block party atmosphere. It's not an armed takeover. There is no threat right now to the public.
Right with God! You're choking me around the back. I am a free citizen! But also the autonomous zone. You're choking me!
Block parties don't take over a municipal building, let alone a police station, and destroy it, basically thumbing their nose at any sense of civic control. Do you believe that you have control of your city and that you would be able to clear those streets? Because you haven't. How long do you think Seattle and those few blocks looks like this?
I don't know. We could have the summer of love.
Well, tell that to the police who is supposed to be in that precinct.
Hey, Chris, the police will be policing in there. I want to be very clear on that.
The decision to board up the precinct, our home, the first precinct I worked in, was something I have been holding off. You should know, leaving the precinct was not my decision. You fought for days to protect it. I asked you to stand on that line, day in and day out, to be pelted with projectiles, to be screamed at, threatened, and in some cases hurt. Then to have a change of course nearly 2 weeks in, it seems like an insult to you and our community. Ultimately, the city had other plans for the building and relented to severe public pressure.
So here I'm starting at Tear Gas Park. That's what they called it, but apparently it's called something else. Welcome to Cal Anderson Park. Can I ask you a few questions? I used to live in Seattle. The people who are camping here mostly, what are they?
We're progressive activists, and we're supporting what's going on.
This is historical, you know what I mean?
It is historical.
So
follow the path, and if you follow the path, you're in the zone.
okay, cool.
Just follow this path. Right? Just walk the park. This one. The road right here comes around.
Oh,
Past the watershed down there.
Okay.
And you're going to start going into where the basketball courts and the skaters are, and that's the zone. And you'll be in.
Wow. Okay, so apparently I just follow this road and I will arrive to the actual quartered off zone. War is the answer, no justice, no peace. Anarchy, baby. Black Lives Matter and masks protect lives. Black trans lives matter. I think that's the holy grail of this movement. It's the golden calf. Let's check out the garden. So were all of these things recently planted?
Yeah.
Huh. So to-do list: water plants, start a revolution, demolish the patriarchy, and respect privacy. Do not film others without permission. Okay, this garden is for Black and Indigenous folks and their plant allies. Are you Marcus? Sorry?
I'm Marcus, yeah.
I'm just asking, what is a Black and Indigenous garden? Is that run by Black and Indigenous people? Or?
Yeah, you got that shit.
Okay. Okay. So,
Okay, I'm gonna. Yeah, go ahead.
BIPOC is Black and Indigenous people of color.
Oh, that's an awesome question. What is a person of color? There are a lot of white Hispanics whose ancestors, for example, are from Germany or whatever, or Argentina, like the Pope.
Right.
He is, his parents are from Italy, which is Europe, which is white.
Right.
But then there are people from the Middle East, and they say, well, are they white or are they not white? So I don't understand what a person of color is. Can I record you or not?
Okay.
Sure.
I have a really shrill voice.
Oh, I don't care. I just want it because I'm learning.
Okay.
Okay. So thanks. So what is a person of color? And is there a definition? And who defines it?
Right. So
Okay.
it is a complicated thing. For one thing, race is a social construct.
I agree. I don't believe in races because I think we're all the human race. Don't you agree?
There is a difference between race and ethnicity.
Right.
So race is it is a social construct that was invented by Europeans to uphold European superiority.
Like
So-
dominance and
Right.
right.
And so that's where the idea of white supremacy comes from,
Okay.
is that Europeans thought of themselves as better than
Right. Like Nazism and the
well, before Nazis.
right, even way before that. Yeah.
So
But that's just another example.
right.
Right.
So a person of color, essentially, and again, it's complicated, but it has to do with how you present racially.
So if you're really white looking and no one would ever think you're not white, then you're not a person of color.
Well, I'm a person of color,
See, I would never think you are.
and you would never think I am. It's complicated.
Am I a person of color?
I don't know, but ethnicity.
So you identify as a person of color. Who defines or who invents these definitions, delineations? Because you said you're a person of color. Where are your ancestors from?
So, my mother is Ojibwe, so my mother is Native American.
Okay.
So, and then my father is white.
And is there a percent or how much? Because that almost sounds like, sometimes I'm like, do I have to show documentation? It almost sounds like racism. It almost sounds like it's perpetuating racism, you know what I mean? And your voice isn't shrill, by the way. You have a beautiful voice.
Oh,
Go ahead.
thank you. Even if your parents, your grandparents,
Right.
your great-grandparents were Native, over time, your blood quantum is thinned out.
Right.
So over time, we are thinned out. So this was
Sure.
This is genocide by assimilation. Is the idea. So there wouldn't be any more Native Americans.
And what they're doing now a lot of times with sign language interpreters, they're saying I just found this out yesterday, IOC, an interpreter of color. Doesn't that almost seem like they're discriminating against? So I don't know what a person of color is. So can you help me with that?
So, for instance, I am a white-coded person of color.
CODED.
Yes.
Okay.
So there used to be the term white passing. With that terminology of white passing, it sounds more like you've managed to pass.
Like you're trying to or something on purpose.
Right, like you've
Yeah.
achieved a level of whiteness.
Right.
Versus white-coded means that when people look at me, they think that I'm white.
Right.
And so for me, ethnically,
You don't experience discrimination.
true.
Right.
Well, I do online. When you look at my bio, you're gonna see that I'm Native, and that was the first time that I really started experiencing a lot of racism.
They're just hateful people everywhere, you know what I mean? So I think it's an interesting thing.
Right.
So,
Especially Canadians.
so what do you think, except Canadians?
No, especially
Oh.
Canadians really hate natives.
Really?
Oh, hi.
No, I was just it's fascinating. I was just listening.
If they're asking for an interpreter of color, what do you have to? Because I have tons of Irish in me too, and a long time ago people would say Irish people aren't white. Have you heard that too? It's totally confusing.
Right.
What's funny is on the census it says, am I Hispanic? And it says Hispanics an identity, and it says blah blah blah, am I Hispanic? And they're like, you are if you say you are. You are if you identify. And that's what's really interesting, because in Portland they had a drum class several years back for Black and Hispanic people, because they're minorities and they were, I guess, discriminated against. But how does that work if you're, let's say you're a white Hispanic and you're born here and your ancestors are European, but your parents were from, and you're blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and you have total privilege? Like, I was wondering, is it Black and brown Hispanic? So it gets so strange. I think it gets so convoluted.
Right.
And that's why I want to know. Do you have any ideas on how that might work?
Right. So that is
And whether you think that's racist to exclude.
white people. It is not It's not racist to exclude white people.
Okay.
These are students at Berkeley who form a wall to stop people who are not of color from passing through. This self-professed stupid woman is a Colombian-Canadian singer. Her name is Lido Pimienta, and during a concert, she asked audience members of color to move to the front, and she asked whites to move to the back. Several white people refused to go to the back, and one volunteer who was a photographer refused to budge and was kicked out of the concert. The organization that put on the event ended up apologizing to the singer. They said, "We will not accept this behavior, and neither should you." They were referring to the behavior of the white person.
So like what if a person from Argentina who speaks perfect English, born here, let's say, his ancestry is just white, like German, but his parents were born in Argentina. He might have been born in Argentina, but he came here. Totally presents white. He is white. He's a white person. He may or may not speak Spanish, but he's Hispanic because he fits one of the definitions.
Right.
Can he go to the drum class or not? Because it's for Hispanics and black people. And you would think that the whole point would be for people who are underprivileged or discriminated against or whatever you'd want to say. So what would happen there?
I think that is the gray area that gets complicated.
That's the part that I'm fascinated with, because I'm a thinker. See, that's the thing. If we're going to change this nation, and I want to change, I don't want people to look at someone and go, "Oh, you're this color, you're that color, we're all brothers and sisters." But we're going to have to convince people that it makes sense and that it's true and logical, and like what we're discussing now makes no sense to me, right? And to you, you can see how it's ridiculously confusing.
Yeah, I agree.
And almost contradictory.
I do agree that it's a very complicated thing. So
You said something about discriminating against white people isn't racist.
right.
Because
Racism is a power structure.
Right, and that's been a redefinition, though. It wasn't always that way.
To say that the Black Lives Matter movement is racist is bizarre to me. Not just because black people don't have the institutional power to be racist or to deploy racism, but because the movement is called for justice. It's called for demilitarization. It's called for nonviolence.
Fry like bacon, pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon, pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon.
Facebook has the ability to censor certain images that depict violence. However, after several famous football players posted this image of a man dressed in black slitting the throat of a police officer, Facebook chose not to take this image down, despite the many complaints.
So there's colorism, there's certainly prejudice or bias, but the thing is that, right.
By the way, what's your name?
Oh, my name's Cassandra.
That's my sister's name.
Oh, cool.
I'm sorry I interrupted you.
It's okay. So we're talking about racism and why you can't be racist against white people, right?
Yes, and how that came about. Who
Decided that?
Yeah.
Well, as we kind of, I don't know specifically who decided on that terminology, but I know that is the general consensus now.
Right.
Because
in certain academia, probably. Right.
Certainly, people of color have agreed with that because
it's so easy to say Native American, Black, Asian are racist because they literally show up in the DNA test and they're specific. They're like obvious. They show up in the DNA test. But Hispanic, of course, couldn't because it's not a race. You heard about the colleges or the universities that were being sued because they were giving points based on race. So you heard that, right?
I didn't specifically hear about.
Black people got 230 extra points. They deducted Asians 50 because their culture teaches them to work really hard, and they end up usually getting the top spots, and they're the highest. They're above whites with regard to income, degrees. Right. They're more successful. So white people were at 0. Asians got deducted 50 points.
This fixation on race, privilege, and hierarchy has permeated our society. An article in the LA Times revealed that a Princeton University study showed how race and ethnicity affect admissions by using SAT scores as a benchmark. It uses the term bonus to describe how many extra SAT points an applicant's race is worth. Blacks received 230 extra points. Hispanics, 185 extra points. Asians were deducted 50 points, and whites received 0 extra points. Needless to say, Asians were not happy. Did you notice that people were given or deducted points based on their race? Black, Asian, white? But Hispanic's not a race. A Hispanic could be any race. These points went to people who identified as Hispanic regardless of their race. Hispanic is an ethnic identity. Why are we giving extra points to people just because of an ethnic identity? Did Muslims get extra points? Did Jews get extra points? Did Slavic people get extra points? What's even worse is that Asians were deducted 50 points. I suggest that instead of identifying as Asian, Asians should identify as Hispanic. Hispanic is merely an identity. Instead of getting deducted 50 points, they would end up getting an extra 185 points, which means they would actually have 235 more points if they identified as Hispanic.
And Asians, of course, were suing. I believe it was Harvard. It was a Princeton study that did, anyway. And here's the crazy part. Hispanics got 180 points.
But that's more complicated.
That's complicated because it's not a race. And then I thought, wait a second, it's an identity. Asians could just identify as Hispanics, and then instead of getting deducted 50 points, they'd get 180 points. Yeah. But that would end up being what? 230, and they would be 230 points above what they were. It's so complicated, and it doesn't make sense. Like, you heard about what happened at Evergreen State College, right?
No.
They had... Are you from Washington?
I am, but...
Oh, this was like the big...
Top of my head.
Oh, this was the biggest thing to happen since I've been born, besides this. There was an instructor, let's just say he supported all of the... I'm not going to say social justice stuff, but he supported rights, trans rights, black rights. He was 100% on board. And they actually decided to change their yearly event, which was called the Day of Absence, where people of color would not go to the college so that people would see that you're important in our community, which I totally think is awesome. But what happened is they chose to do the opposite and say, during this Day of Absence, we're going to exclude white people. And this man was not on board, even though he supported their whole movement. And he said, I think that kind of almost sounds like racism, which you had said excluding whites isn't racist, right? And his name was Brett Weinstein.
Difference between debate and dialectic. Debate, wait a second. No, it is. Debate means you are trying to win. Dialectic means you are using disagreement to discover what is true. I am not interested in debate. I am interested only in dialectic, which does mean I listen to you and you listen to me.
This is former Evergreen State College professor Brett Weinstein.
What terms you want to speak on? This is not about you.
I'm talking about this is all about him.
On terms of white privilege. This is not a discussion.
These are the same snowflakes that demand safe spaces for themselves.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. These racist teachers have got to go.
But no, they fear from us. They fear of us trying to mace us in the eyes and shit. For what? For us saying like, hey, Brett, you need to apologize? For one fucking white guy?
Is there any black folks that need water in here?
Why is it all these black women and femmes doing all this emotional labor in this space? These white-ass faculty members need to be holding him and all these people accountable. We don't need to be doing...
Referring to your professors as white-ass faculty isn't racist at all, is it?
That's not appropriate. You gotta put your hands up.
They're ordering the Evergreen State College president to put his hands down.
Your ancestors came here of free choice and decided to bring along my people not of their own free will to work and build this country. Okay, and so I'm just letting you know that slavery still has repercussions in society today. And that is what we're here about. Those repercussions. It doesn't go away. It's not over.
This is an interview with Brett Weinstein.
That
interchange that you saw was very tense.
Yeah.
But it got far worse very quickly. By the end of the day, it was anarchy on our campus. People were, including me, were literally being stalked and hunted. I'm receiving text messages from students elsewhere in the room telling me there's talk that I won't be allowed to leave. She stands up in this room.
There was literally talk of you being kidnapped or something.
This is Dave Rubin.
There's been some crazy stuff here. Yeah.
There was talk of my being kidnapped. I got a text message from another student who told me that she overheard a conversation that people should keep mace hidden. So this was a very dangerous situation. It's preposterous. And I should say that the same faculty member has accused me of racism once very directly in a faculty meeting, and then implicitly in another faculty meeting she said that the negative reaction to the equity proposal that had been advanced was a racist backlash. In this faculty meeting, when she said that, with the president of the college and the provost sitting right there, I said, you know, somebody at some point should check on the question of whether or not I actually am a racist. I think you might be very surprised.
Yeah.
I was then told by the chair of the faculty that this was not the place to defend myself.
That's because he's an evil white man pig.
And then Naima spoke up and said, you shouldn't expect a venue in which to defend yourself. The president and provost sat perfectly silently through this interaction. Well, the police, in fact, told me on Wednesday, that day after the protest at my class, they told me, they called me and said, are you on campus? I said, no. They said, don't come to campus. The protesters are searching car to car and asking for identifying information of the occupants. They're looking for what they say is an individual, and we think it's you. I honestly cannot believe it. The number of things that I have seen that I thought, well, now they have to act, and then they have failed to do so, is unreal. And the fact, I mean, George Bridges, our president, continues to capitulate to demands that are leveled by these protesters when it is explicitly said if these demands aren't met, there will be violence.
You didn't hear about this? Yeah, it's one of the biggest things that's ever happened. I would say it's similar. And that's why I ask about excluding whites, because that's what happened. It was all sparked just because he said, I don't know if it's a good idea to change the day of absence and say instead of people of color being absent, we're going to say whites can't come. And yeah, it was crazy. I came here specifically to see with my own eyes, because that's me. I don't like to listen to, I actually watch Fox News, I watch MSNBC, I watch CNN, I watch everybody, because that way you could cross-reference and compare. But I figured if I come here firsthand and talk to people, it's the best. So were you here the other day when that preacher guy was thrown out and attacked? Because I saw videos of him. There was a guy who was preaching and he got attacked, he even got sexually assaulted.
Yeah, I mean, I heard about that, but I did not see
Do you know anyone who knows anything about it? Because I want to know, like, firsthand.
Yeah,
Because I saw the video, and they were literally putting him on the ground, they tackled him, and I want to know where it stemmed from. I don't think he was violent, I think he was just speaking, but is there anyone I could talk to who saw?
Because over here, it's very different.
Then over there, I'll go over there. I don't really agree. I think we need a mask outside. Do you think so?
You're like super close
Right.
to someone. Yeah.
You have a mask.
Yes, I do. So I'm protecting you, but you're not protecting me.
Doesn't your mask protect you?
Not as much.
Oh, this is craziness. COVID, I swear. We're like living in the apocalypse, huh? Several questions. I already talked to a girl for half an hour about race, which is incredible. I'm white. I guess if you call a person of my race white, I was born in the United States, but my ancestors are from like 10 different countries. But I'm an interpreter, and recently I've been noticing that people are saying, oh, we prefer an IOC, which means interpreter of color. And I'm like, what does that mean? Do they have to be like black? Is Middle Eastern? Do you guys have any idea?
I would imagine that they would be speaking about themselves in general, but relating it to the whole. So like, if I was a person of color that is hard of hearing or deaf, like it'd be cool if the person that was
looked similar to you?
Yeah,
like if you were an indigenous, then you'd want an Indian.
Yeah.
That gets super difficult.
So it's per person.
Right.
But they're talking in the collective we.
Right.
You know, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Right. That would be super hard in that case. Okay, so
Well,
that...
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How many of your clients would you identify as white? Like,
I don't
just, like, rough-
really know what white is, because since I grew up in a Spanish-speaking environment,
Yes.
it's just like an American. What race is an American? We're all races. So in Mexico, for example, you could be of any... Sorry.
Oh, and I guess I would add, if you're white in here, you need to be listening more than talking.
Well, I'm asking a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you know
We're
what I'm
good.
saying? Like that's, if I were to like parse it down, is I feel like I'm here to listen more.
But I'm not white, possibly.
Okay.
That's what I want to know. So I have questions. See, what I hate is when
I got it.
I hear tons of people. Thank you, by the way. Oh, wow.
What's your name?
Corey.
Corey, I'm Katie.
If someone interprets for Hispanic, they could be of any color. So do you have to like say, well, I have to look at your color? What?
I think it's whoever you're interpreting.
Yeah.
If they identify as a person of color, and how within that do they consider themselves black? Do they consider themselves indigenous? How it interacts with you got to think about, like, how does this affect you and your interactions? Because that's what you want, right? You want to respect people.
Right.
You don't want to offend anybody.
But I believe that sometimes the only way for change is to make the change happen, which is what I believe is probably...
Question?
I'm gonna do the question. Since this was the precinct, I don't know where the precinct is. It was taken over basically by force, etc.
Well, they just left.
The autonomous zone is taken over, etc., because there's a purpose, right? It's to defend rights. What if someone like me, who's a conservative, and is totally against abortion because I believe that babies are a human life, a person, right?
Yeah.
If I said I defend babies' rights, I'm going to take over Planned Parenthood, and I'm not,
okay.
It's almost similar.
It's not though. Because
It is.
now it's over.
Yeah. I think that's a big difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, though. But thanks for talking.
Like the police just left of their own accord.
Good.
And nobody's.
Who do you think I could talk to? There's a preacher guy the other day who got attacked.
I'm not
Who
sure.
could I
but
talk
I
to?
do know that
In there?
I think you have great questions about race.
Yeah.
The race conversation cafe.
Thanks. Thank you. Capitol Hill Occupy protest. Can I record you so I can hear the answer?
I'm one of the media people.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, basically the CHOP is Capitol Hill Occupy protest. The reason why the name change has come about is basically because it more accurately describes what's going on. I mean, it's not like we're trying to secede from the nation. It's
Right.
You know, if you look at it, it's protest. It's Occupy.
Right.
It's similar to the Occupy protest more than it is really anything else. But that's not exactly how it's been presented to the world.
Right. Well, that's why I came here. Now, I did see the police chief, and she said that after 6 days of fighting, she said there were police injured, there were projectiles being hurled. You probably saw.
Yeah, I was down here getting hit by a projectile.
That they decided to pull the police out and stuff.
Yeah.
So now the police aren't here.
And I called the governor. I called Governor Inslee, and I listened to a 2-minute auto recording about telling me how to report non-essential businesses like hair salons for being open. And I'm just patiently listening through it. And I get through to a staffer. He said, "Sir, I don't want to make this personal." And I said, "This is personal because this is my home and I don't have cops anymore. And I have people throwing grenades in front of me. And this is some kind of anarchist homegrown movement." And they get bold. And when the mayor tells them it's just a summer of love, why would it ever be different? You can see that we don't have a right to vote for stuff here anymore. You can see the demands where they say they want the pensions taken away from every police officer in Seattle.
So what happened is that they essentially just left.
Right.
And
But but there was violence.
Yeah, there's about a week-long protest of them here nightly, basically, until they finally lifted the curfew.
Right.
After they lifted the curfew, then it was a 24-hour protest that began then, and it was from that point that the creation, quote-unquote, of the CHOP began, because all of this was active protest.
So what is the justification, though, for using violence against the police?
So the thing is, there wasn't a lot of violence against the police.
Right.
I'm not sure how aware you are of exactly how it all...
I just hear millions of different stories. That's
so,
that's why I'm here.
The thing is that when you look at what we were protesting for at the time.
Right.
A lot of it comes from essentially the creation of like renewed issues in our own community. They're happening all over, but Seattle has a unique history with especially racially driven violence within its community and within its police force. So
George Floyd, I haven't seen anything that indicates that he did it because he was black. I understand that the cop was white in George Floyd, but I also heard that the cop always was brutal to people. I think so how do we know for a fact that it was race driven?
But the thing is, it has to do with the disproportional statistics of enforcement. Not only just like the street level enforcement activities against black people, but also the jurisdictional side or the judicial side with the.
No, I agree. That's why Trump reformed and helped a lot of people.
I mean, I've seen some of that stuff, but I have yet to have a chance to go through it and see if that's actually substantial.
I have two questions. So one is regarding proportions. For example, I decided not to listen to everybody and to just look at statistics. So I went and I looked online and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the FBI expanded chart for blah, blah, blah. And it said that in 2018, 6,000 something black people killed were the perpetrators of homicide, and then it said 4,000 something white people. But then at the same time, black people only constitute 13% of the which meant, and I did my little calculation, and it meant that for white people to have committed the same murder, we would have had to commit 30,000. And so I calculated it, and my calculation was that they were committing 7 times the murders.
So my question to you is that what is that a result of? Is that a result of?
Oh, I think it's a result of a million different things, but my point is that means that they're going to be the suspect and the perpetrator in a lot of crimes, which means they are going to be stopped way, way more. That's my only point.
So it has more to do with the systemic issues. Here's my counterpoint. My counterpoint is, why is the rate of murder of people by police officers, especially those who are black, so much higher? And then if you extend that, what happens when you have white on black crime, and then you add that to the statistic, and then you cross-examine that with where people are, where this stuff is happening.
Right.
Because if you're in a tiny town in Iowa where there's no black population because there was never any history of all the horrible things, when you take a look at those places, it's like, okay, that doesn't happen there, but still violence against people of color does happen there at a higher disproportional rate. For me, the reason why I'm here is because the system itself is inherently broken.
I think the world is inherently broken. I think we live in a sinful world.
Just, start over. Like, can we just hit like a big button and
I would love that.
I would love just like a little reset. Like, we're doing some good stuff here right now, but like, even if this is, and I think the thing is, it's like the more you walk around this and the more you look at it, the thing you discover is that there is. And I don't mean to speak for anyone who is religious, but I will say that, like, as far as my experience I've worked in homeless outreach for years, and this place is I would say this is a fairly godly place.
Pressing question. I'm seeing all these videos of this guy the other day who was a preacher who got assaulted, and I saw him assaulted, and I have it on my phone. Just the other day, he was here. He had a box, which was like a speaker, a black speaker.
Yeah, this was after he had charged and
went
into groups multiple times.
Did he attack anyone? I want to know what happened because there's no backstory to the videos.
Basically, he had.
Were you here?
I was here.
And are you like? You're not security.
Well, we don't have security.
Okay.
We have sentinels. We have people that are here.
You have what? Sentinels?
Yeah, people that are here to make sure that.
Just watching.
Make sure that you don't get hurt.
Right.
And so the thing was, other people were getting combative with him, and so part of our concerns is
because what was he doing?
He was being extremely vocal, very loud, screaming about how this is a land of sin and blah blah blah.
Was he being racist or was he just saying?
I wouldn't say that he was being racist, but I think he was being very provocative.
Hell and brimstone or whatever.
Yeah, the hell and brimstone types, and like.
Which is offensive, but at the same time, I agree with free speech. But
and the thing for me that I believe that is very important is that, like, if you're coming here to speak the word of God, like, why scream it at people?
I agree. I hate it when people scream.
Like, if I can say this, I think, like, you know, this is the closest I have felt to a religious experience in my life.
Really?
Because this place is a place of acceptance.
Mhm.
This place is a place where you can look at another person as another person doing what they think is best. You know, and people are talking about, like, oh, you know, abolish the police, and like,
I think that's ridiculous.
I think it is too.
It's ignorant.
Not because
it's ignorant.
I would love for our society to develop to a point to where we can take it upon ourselves to involve ourselves with the issues we see in our community in a way that is meaningful and empowered, that enables true change. There's always a need for protectors.
Absolutely.
And like, there's always a need for someone to rush in and stop someone from beating the shit out of his wife.
So getting back to that, what happened to the preacher then?
He was being loud.
Okay.
He started getting a little combative with people.
Okay.
It was
Like
one of the
physically?
times- like physically, like kind of lashing out at people. And he had his thing, he had a sign.
Okay.
And he was walking forward, and he was being like, and like we were trying to, you know, like we're trying to say like, no, don't go this way, like that, because I think he just needs a little bit of help, honestly, just in that, and not because, you know, his beliefs are good, but like, you know, we had lots of people out here, like, you know, this is not a place of hate. This is not a place of sin.
Right.
This is a place of love.
You'll die out here, bro. You want to die out here?
You can't change the way other people treat you.
Right.
But you can do things within your own power. And if the thing within your own power is to identify with somebody else who's got a similar struggle to you, well, that's why we're all here.
You hear a lot of accusations though, but for example, I'll say some opinions that I have. For example, I'm pro-life. And my belief is that, for example, think about this. Suppose you have a woman who's 6 months pregnant, and then she gives birth. It's a preemie.
Yeah.
The minute it comes out, it's a person under law. Under law, before it comes out, it's not a person.
Yeah.
Okay. What if a different person is 9 or 10 months pregnant and overdue, and listen, and aborts it?
You cannot do that in the United States without a medically valid reason. It has nothing to do with what the hell's going on. No, I'm not going to have you pull. I'm not going to have you pull me sideways from the points that we have been making.
No, my question's just about this area. That's all my question is. I think it's unjust to kill babies. So what if a team of my friends and I occupied, because I'm almost into the occupied zone. What if we fought against the cops like they did here, right? Because they did fight against the cops. And we wouldn't leave, and we occupied Planned Parenthood and said, nope, we're not leaving because you're killing babies.
Okay,
because it's for justice.
That would require them to have been born first in order for them to be murdered. Because
no, my opinion is
no, your opinion is different than fact.
No, but
there's a difference between opinion and fact.
I
and
believe
in this case,
it, though.
like, there is a difference between someone coming out here, being 21 years old, living their whole life totally peacefully.
We're talking about abortion.
Being at their significant other's house, and then getting shot to death by their dad.
No, I understand, but
because he's black, 15 minutes after curfew.
Okay, let's
That is a murder, sir.
I know. I'm asking the jurisdiction.
A clump of cells being removed from a female's body as a result of her decision is not a murder.
I'm not asking that. My question is
literally, I'll do the same thing right now. I'm scraping cells from my hand.
Okay.
And it's coming off onto my finger.
Okay.
And now it is gone.
There are babies aborted at 6. There are even partial birth abortions.
I would know because my brother was one of them. I don't have a brother.
Okay.
Because they were so unbelievably messed up in the womb.
Okay.
That they had to abort.
Right.
My older brother.
There are abortions though that are late term. There are also abortions at 6 months.
Why are we fucking talking about that now?
Because
ask yourself, sir, why are we discussing that right now?
I'll tell you why. My question is, as a citizen of the United States, I've been
This is a public avenue.
It's public, but my question is, can a person or a group of people occupy any place they want just because they say we're doing it in the name of justice?
We are not occupying any. I'm not the one making the demands. I'm not the one who needs the demands met. I'm the one that's here basically making sure that all these people don't get. I can't tell you what's going on with the demands because I'm not the one making the demands, and I'm not the one who needs reparations for what's gone wrong. My color.
So is this all about reparations? What reparations do people get?
Don't ask me. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to tell
okay,
you because you know why? This is why.
I'm not even interrupting right now. You guys can just
Abolish the police. What are we gonna do without the police? Jeff.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do if we abolish the police? How are we gonna protect ourselves?
So I think that one thing you'll find is that when it comes down to the details around abolishing the police, you won't find a ton of consensus on exactly what that
You will never find consensus on anything.
Exactly. I think that everyone here agrees when we say defund the police, we're talking about radically reducing the amount of funds that we give to the police and radically reducing the size of the police force. And in my opinion, the reason why we need to do that is also for like the police to be able to do the jobs that they should be doing well. You'll notice our security, their job is security. They're not also expected to be the people who like handle people who are in like emotional distress. They're not also expected to be the people who get someone who's homeless to resources.
They're
It's about
way,
redefining the idea of what a police officer is supposed to be. Over the past several decades, hundreds of years honestly, we've seen our public institutions, and not just our public institutions, but all the institutions that take care of folks who are who have historically been oppressed, be defunded, and we've seen the amount of militarization and funding go towards the police officers to try and just deal with that.
That sounds more like reallocating the funds.
And I think that pretty much everyone who talks about defunding the police wants to take that money and put it towards community services.
Okay, so this is totally different though. Yeah. Abolish the police.
So abolish the police as they are today. Yeah, so abolish the police. And then there are going to be people here who say we don't need any police at all. I'm going to respectfully disagree with those folks. I think that maybe we could cut the budget by like 90% and have police who are here to like be a detective. If someone does go and do something heinous, like murder somebody or rape somebody, there should probably be someone to go and find that person and make sure they can be held accountable. Everyone here agrees that we want accountability for someone. I don't know if you've seen all the accountability chants. We all love accountability for someone who does something wrong, right? The problem is that the police as an institution allow people to get into an authority position where they can abuse people.
Right.
And that's not a good thing. It's the things that police should be doing. Right. Stopping someone who's speeding, stopping someone who's driving drunk. Really important. We have highway patrol.
I would say speeding is way less important than other things. Speeding is like,
I'm going to respectfully disagree because we have a lot of people who die every year in automobile accidents.
But there's so many things. There's stealing, there's violence.
Why do people steal?
It depends on the reason. Not everybody is...
Generally speaking, why do people steal?
Because you can't say that. There are people who choose not to work. There are people who don't work.
How many people do you know like that?
There are lots of people who don't work.
Who choose not to work and they go and make a professional stealing?
There are a lot of people who have mental illness problems.
Okay. Yes.
And let's say, instead of...
Can we support those people with and provide mental health services for those people instead?
But stealing is obviously something that needs to be policed.
Stealing is an economic problem. And I'm not saying that if someone steals something, there shouldn't be a responsibility for that. If someone goes and steals something, that might be a job for a detective. But honestly, I would rather educate that person on why they shouldn't steal or help them, because most of the time, honestly, 9 times out of 10, if someone's stealing...
People know why they shouldn't steal.
Why should someone not take bread if they're starving and they look around them and they see a bunch?
Most people aren't just stealing food, though. They're stealing CDs and they're stealing iPods. But go ahead, tell me.
Sure, okay.
Tell me. Most people don't steal food. Did you know that? But what you're saying doesn't make sense.
Okay, I will get there.
Okay, go ahead.
In a second, okay? Otherwise, I'm just going to be done and I'm going to walk away.
That's fine.
Okay.
I will respect that. Go ahead. I'm listening.
What I would like to say is that there's this mentality. Honestly, you should just go and listen to Tupac. Tupac explains it beautifully. But I
like Tupac. It's cool.
Yeah, so he has an interview.
Okay.
He's talking about why. So he talks about this giant party, right? And he's like, folks who are not in the party, specifically talking about black folks. He's like, we've been looking at the party our whole lives. Inside, we're out here, we're hungry, right? Inside, we're hungry, we're tired, we don't have food, we don't have houses, but inside we see there's a banquet and there's food being thrown around, they're wasting food, they're laughing, they're literally throwing food in the trash just because they have too much, right? And they keep on seeing that. And
if you're in America, we have everything, buddy. Anybody can succeed in America. It doesn't matter what color you are.
I don't necessarily disagree. Anyone can succeed.
Thank you. And they do.
They do. But look at the statistics. Here's statistics. Okay? Who is impoverished? Who has the access to wealth in this country? I'm not saying that someone can't work their way up. But what you have is institutions that are working against people. And they're not even necessarily always actively doing it. They're working against them because they don't support them. Can you and I walk just right over there?
Here's
and I will
the point.
Talking with you?
I just don't agree I don't agree with taking a simple question. Listen, taking a simple question. If we abolish the police, this is my question.
It's not a simple question, man. This is a complex problem.
No. My question was. Don't get. Yeah.
Okay.
Listen.
I'm here with you.
Listen.
Okay.
My question is very simple, and I just wanted to know.
I know.
If we abolish the police, listen to me.
Do we respect consent, though? You're pointing your camera right.
Okay, listen.
Want to take a break? I got this.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm respecting it. Here's the problem. I looked at this, and it seems like a ludicrous idea to me. Okay. And when I asked some questions, he wanted to take me on this entire journey, and he decided his answer. He said, "Well, I got to take you on this journey," and he had to tell me this huge thing, and that's what I don't want to do. I don't want to go through social justice because I've studied social justice.
No.
And intersectionality, I know all of it. So tell me something I don't know.
In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism.
We see that today in our universities.
The result you can see, most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system.
All white people are racist. Not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, oh, maybe some of us have worked it out. No, you're always going to be racist, actually. I believe that white people are born into not being human. Y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons. White people are all racist. So I just want y'all to know that up front.
So today is a kickoff for our Whiteness History Month at Portland Community College, and this is the first event that we're having at the Southeast Campus.
And this is David here, so you can follow along. I'm going to read you about his hierarchical profile here. David, who works as a landscaper on the grounds of a manufacturing plant, is lower in the company hierarchy than people who work on the production lines, but he is higher than people who are custodians. David is male and Asian American, so David is higher on the gender hierarchy than his female co-workers, and is lower on the race hierarchy than his white co-workers. Since David is bald, tall, and slender, he feels lower than men with thick heads of hair, but feels higher than men who are either shorter or heavier than today's hierarchical interpretation of desirable man.
Is this a joke?
David has use of 10 fingers, so he's higher on the body hierarchy than his cousin born with 3 fewer fingers on one hand than on his other hand. David chose his apartment carefully because David and his partner Frank are low on the sexual orientation hierarchy. Frank grew up in England, so his accent places him higher on the immigrant hierarchy than their neighbor from Mexico. David also participates in the religious hierarchy, in which he is lower than the clergy, but higher than people not of his faith.
Affirmative action is a system of legalized racism.
Amen.
It is a racial classification system that changes people's chances of admission to college or graduate school, and there is no justification for it.
Why is it all these black women and femmes doing all this emotional labor in this space? These white-ass faculty members need to be holding him and all these people accountable. We don't need to be doing...
No, I don't agree with that.
Then why the fuck did you accept the position?
Because
Who the fuck hired you?
I have a different
You
vision
should
than you.
step down. If that is what you think about being ambassador, you should step down. Ho ho! These racist teachers have got to go. Hey hey! Ho ho! These racist teachers have got to go. Hey hey!
And my job is to shut other white people down when they want to interrupt. My job is to shut other white people down when they want to say, oh no, I'm not prejudiced.
It's time we stop saying white privilege and start saying white supremacy.
I was really nervous to get up here because there's a lot of white people in the crowd. And that wasn't a joke.
All white people are racist.
Hey, at least she's honest. And modestly dressed.
You're saying that I can't have a hairstyle because of your culture? Why?
Because it's my culture.
You know what, girl? Dude, girl, you have no right to tell me what I can wear.
The female is a San Francisco State University employee.
Yo, girl, stop touching me right now.
Yo, girl, stop touching me right now. Come back.
Get off of me.
Come back, come back, come back.
You stole my property, my Make America Great Again hat.
Look at the kind of shit he's wearing. Look it. Hey, y'all. So this guy thought it would be a good idea to go into the conference
With
Wearing
my freedom
this
of
fucking
speech,
hat.
with my freedom of speech, she took my hat.
Wearing
this
this
belongs
hat.
to me.
Look at the kind of shit he's wearing. You know what this represents? This represents genocide.
I understand.
Genocide of a bunch of people. And look at what he's wearing.